The SEAL commander's grin said everything. Another desk-bound analyst pretending to be one of them. But when an ambush turned his elite squad into helpless targets, and all their million-dollar training meant nothing, Ava Merrick did something that made every man on that ridge question everything they thought they knew about combat. She grabbed a rifle they hadn't even realized she carried, stepped alone into the kill zone, and dropped 5 enemies in 3 heartbeats. The commander's words came out through clenched teeth as he stared, disbelieving. No woman shoots like that. He was right. None ever had. Because Ava Merrick wasn't just any woman. What followed would force America's most lethal soldiers to face a truth they'd avoided for years. Sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one everyone dismisses. The C-130 jolted through turbulence above the Cordash Mountains, its bay crowded with men who could sleep through anything, except Ava Merrick. She sat still in her canvas seat, eyes open, following the flicker of shadows as the aircraft rolled. 28 years old, compact frame. Dark hair pulled into a tight regulation bun that made her face seem even sterner. She wore the same desert fatigues and armor as the rest, wore the same practiced look of boredom, yet her gray eyes, cold and storm-like, swept every corner of the cabin, reading threats that didn't even exist yet. Across from her, Chief Eli Rogan caught her gaze and looked away first. That had been happening ever since she joined their transport. The SEALs couldn't quite figure out what to make of the woman from Joint Special Operations Command, the one who'd attached herself to their mission like a barnacle on a steel hull. Her file listed Intelligence Analyst. Her demeanor said something else entirely. 30 minutes to drop, the loadmaster shouted above the engines. The SEALs stirred, checking weapons with the easy precision of men repeating a ritual they'd done 1,000 times. Ava barely moved except for her hands, gliding over her gear with practiced order, sidearm, extra mags, med kit, comms gear, each item exactly where it belonged, reachable without thought. Then Commander Cole Hartley came striding down the bay, bracing himself with the overhead straps as the aircraft rocked. He looked like the recruiting poster for a SEAL officer. Tall, broad-shouldered, square-jawed, radiating the confidence of someone who'd never failed at anything that mattered. He stopped in front of her, expression neither hostile nor friendly. "Merrick," he called over the roar. "Let's make this clear. This is a direct action op. You stick with command, you watch, you take notes. You do not fire unless we're completely overrun and there's no other choice. Got it?" Ava met his stare with those storm-gray eyes. "Crystal, sir. I mean it," he pressed. "I've got 12 shooters who've trained together for months. We don't need heroics from intel, understood?" Hartley waited, as if expecting an argument or excuse. When she just held his gaze, calm and silent, he grunted and moved on. Behind her, Petty Officer Mason Vale muttered to his swim buddy, $20 as she locks up the second round, start flying." "No bet," came the reply. "They always do." Ava Merrick didn't react. Instead, she quietly logged their voices, memorizing every tone, inflection, and assumption hidden in those few careless words. Years in intelligence had taught her that people exposed more truth in casual chatter than in any classified report. And right now, these men were telling her exactly what she already knew. They saw her as dead weight wrapped in government protocol. The loadmaster began the final descent checklist. Ava closed her eyes and slipped into her own ritual, one no one else aboard could have understood. She didn't pray or picture victory. She simply accepted what was waiting beyond that ramp with the cold composure of someone who'd long since learned emotion was a luxury that got people killed. The ramp opened, and the chill air of the Cordash Mountains rushed in, dry, sharp, carrying the taste of dust and diesel. The SEALs deployed with seamless precision, boots striking hard earth in a formation so well drilled it looked automatic. Ava followed, keeping close to the command unit, near enough to observe, far enough to avoid interfering with the real operators. But Ava Merrick had never been just an observer, and before the day was done, every man here would understand that. The target compound lay nestled in the valley like an open wound in the land, ringed by terraced slopes that had been cultivated for centuries. The early light bled over the horizon, washing the mud-brick walls in muted grays and violets, as if the whole place belonged to another century. Intelligence claimed the objective. A high-value insurgent leader was inside with a handful of guards. 6 to 8 men, light arms, nothing advanced. But Ava knew better. Intelligence, in her experience, was often the most dangerous kind of optimism. The SEAL team advanced with perfect textbook rhythm. Ava stayed close to Commander Cole Hartley and the comms officer, watching as the assault unit moved on the compound below. She spotted Chief Eli Rogan up front, scanning the ground for IEDs, checking every corner with steady precision. These men were seasoned, the best the country could field, and yet something felt wrong. Ava Merrick sensed it before she could explain it, that faint crawl between her shoulders every combat veteran learns to trust. The compound was unnaturally still. No dogs barking, no roosters, no movement at all, just heavy silence pressing on the air. "Sir," she said quietly to Commander Hartley, "something's off." He glanced back, irritated. "They're asleep, that's the idea." "No noise means we're early." "No dogs, Commander. Rural Cordash. No dogs." "Maybe they ate them, Merrick. Stay focused. I need you." The rest of his sentence vanished as the first explosion ripped through the morning like shattering glass. It wasn't inside the compound. It came from behind it, a massive IED buried along their approach route. Timed perfectly, just after the assault team passed, catching the support element dead center in the kill zone. The shockwave slammed into Ava's chest, a wall of heat and grit as fire and smoke tore upward from the hillside. Men screamed. The radio exploded with chaos. Calls for medics, status reports, desperate voices demanding to know what the hell had just happened. Then came the gunfire. Not from the target building, but from the surrounding slopes. Enemy firing points, pre-dug and fortified by someone who knew exactly how American operators moved. Muzzle flashes lit the ridgelines like sparks from hell, automatic bursts raking the valley. The ambush was flawless. The SEALs were trapped, pinned down with wounded and nowhere to run. Hartley shouted into his radio, trying to coordinate, trying to form some kind of counter. Ava's eyes tracked the fight with detached precision, counting flashes, estimating range, identifying which positions were issuing coordinated fire. Her hand drifted toward her pistol, then froze. Not yet, not unless she had to. A SEAL 10 meters away went down, clutching a bleeding leg where a round had slipped past armor. Another man dragged him toward a low wall as bullets cracked overhead like furious hornets. "The firebase should be covering us. Where's Delta?" Hartley yelled. "Outpost Delta's taking fire," the comms operator shouted back, panic edging his voice. "Heavy contact, they're pinned too." Of course they were. This wasn't chance. It was a perfectly orchestrated strike. Multiple attacks hitting simultaneously to cut off, isolate, and annihilate the entire task force. And it was working. Ava keyed her own radio, voice unnervingly calm amid the chaos. "Heathen 6, this is Cipher 7. Request immediate air support. Coordinates to follow. 30 to 40 hostiles dug in with fortified positions. Cipher 7, Heathen 6, air assets are 20 minutes out. Can you hold?" Ava looked around at the chaos, the SEALs firing blind against higher ground, blood and dust mixing beneath their boots. 20 minutes might as well have been 20 hours. 20 minutes might as well have been an eternity. Negative. Heathen 6. We need it now. Working at Cipher 7, stand by. Standing by wasn't an option. Another SEAL went down. This one didn't get up. The corpsman who tried to reach him took incoming and was forced back into cover. Ava could now pick out where she thought the enemy commander was, judging by which firing points were issuing coordinated commands. A fighting position sat halfway up the slope, angled perfectly into the valley and hardened against counter-battery. Chief Eli Rogan staggered back to the command element, breathing heavy. A cut above his eyebrow bled dark down his temple. "Sir, we're getting ripped apart. We need to move. Find any cover." "There is no cover," Hartley snapped. "It's all kill zone." They planned this to the letter. "Then we die here," Vale barked, swagger stripped away by the sharp edge of fear. Ava stood up. She simply rose, calm as someone standing to leave a church pew. Every SEAL looked at her like she'd lost her mind. Standing in a firefight usually gets you dead. Everyone knew that, everyone except Ava Merrick, who was already moving toward a low berm that offered marginal concealment and a sight line to the enemy. "Merrick, get down!" Hartley roared. She ignored the order. Her hand slid to the small of her back beneath her vest and produced a weapon that was not standard issue for an intelligence analyst. The rifle was compact and black, custom-tuned in ways that hinted at precise, unusual requirements. It wore a suppressor that spoke of quiet work and optics that cost more than a car. She snapped out the bipod in one fluid motion and went prone behind the berm, cheek to stock, breath already controlled. Through her scope, the enemy positions resolved with icy clarity. She could make out muzzle flashes, movement behind stone breastworks, and the heat shimmer off barrels that had been firing too long. "What the hell?" Rogan started. Ava's first shot was nearly a whisper, a suppressed crack almost lost in the din. On the hillside, a man manning a PKM pitched forward, his gun collapsing silent. The other SEALs didn't even realize what had happened until she was already swinging to a second target. The rifle cracked again. Another fighter went down. This man had been coordinating fire from a supposedly secure position. He'd believed himself invisible behind his stone parapet. He wasn't. Ava worked through targets with the efficiency of a machine. Every shot deliberate, measured, final. She wasn't trying merely to suppress enemy fire or keep heads down. She was removing threats from the field, one precise hit at a time. The kind of shooting that looked effortless but actually demanded years of training, a flawless grasp of ballistics, and a cold nerve most people never acquire. Ava's shots left the SEALs staring in stunned silence as their so-called intelligence analyst became something else entirely, hitting targets at distances that should have been impossible for such a compact rifle. She adjusted for wind, elevation, even the rising mirage of heat with tweaks so small they passed for instinct. An RPG team was about to launch into the pinned Americans when Ava put a round through the gunner's chest at 400 meters, then slid the follow-up into the loader before he could react. Both men collapsed within seconds. The RPG clattered unused down the slope. "Jesus Christ," Vale breathed. "Who is she?" Hartley watched through his optic, tracking Merrick's shots as the enemy position unraveled under fire from someone not supposed to be carrying, much less firing, with that level of skill. "Merrick, what the hell are you?" he demanded. She didn't answer. Her world had narrowed to the reticle, the soft pressure on the trigger, the steady rhythm of breath and squeeze. The man she'd pegged as the commander tried to reposition between terraces. Thinking the folds of earth hid him, he was wrong. The shot was hard, a moving, partly obscured target at a range where even a steady shooter would struggle on paper. Ava led him the exact amount, fired when all factors aligned, and watched the figure slump mid-stride. The effect was immediate. Without a central coordinator, their disciplined fire collapsed into sporadic, uncoordinated bursts as individual positions chose survival over tactics and began to withdraw from the invisible death, finding them wherever they hid. Ava fired 3 more rounds in rapid sequence, each catching someone who thought they were escaping safely. Lesson learned. There is no safe retreat from her. "They're breaking," Rogan said, voice thick with disbelief. "She's breaking them alone." The firefight didn't end with a grand finale. It simply stopped as enemy positions went quiet one by one, either emptied by death or abandoned into the hills. The valley settled into a heavy hush, punctured only by wounded moans and the crackle of burning gear. Ava stowed her rifle and rose, showing no emotion, no elation, no relief, no tremor, just standing, weapon ready, scanning for threats that had already ceased to exist. Hartley approached like someone closing on a dangerous animal, voice stripped of scorn, edged instead with awe and unease. Merrick. He couldn't mask the change. What the hell was that? She met him with those gray eyes. "That was me keeping your team alive, sir. Intelligence analysts don't shoot like that. Nobody does. So, what are you, really?" He spat the question. Ava ejected a mag, checked the chamber, and reloaded with movements that spoke of endless repetition. "The person you call when intel isn't enough," she said. "The person you send to read a situation and fix it." She paused, holding his gaze. "The person you send to eliminate targets without anyone knowing who did it." Silence settled, heavy with implication, until Rogan cut in across the valley. "We've got wounded who need evac, and we need this area secured before someone higher decides to shell us." Hartley's gaze stayed on her. "How many?" 17 confirmed, maybe 3 more I'm not sure about. He tasted the number. 17. "How long did that take?" "Does it matter?" She shot back. "Yes, it matters. Because I've been doing this for a dozen years, and I've never seen anyone shoot like you did." The question in his head was simple. Asset or threat? Ava slung the rifle across her chest. "Right now, Commander, I'm the reason your men are going home," she said. "That's all that should matter." She turned and walked toward the corpsman working on the wounded SEALs, leaving Hartley alone with thoughts he probably wouldn't ever sort out. Behind him, Vale and his buddy murmured under their breath. "You see that shit?" "I saw it." "Can't believe it, but I saw it." "Who the hell is she?" "Someone way above our pay grade, brother. Way above." The sun climbed, burning off the morning chill and painting the valley in brutal light that showed every scrap of the fight. Spent brass dotted the dust, blood stained the earth. Amid the wreckage, Ava moved among the injured with the same calm efficiency she'd shown with a rifle, helping the corpsman stabilize men for extraction. She didn't look like the cold-blooded killer who'd wiped out 17 fighters. She looked exactly like her files said, an intelligence analyst doing her job. But everyone who'd been in that valley now knew a different truth. Files lie, appearances mislead, and the most dangerous people are the ones you never expected. The Chinook's rotors beat the air into submission as it settled, dust and debris swirling. The wounded loaded first, lashed to litters or walking on shaky legs. The rest of the SEAL element followed with the careful efficiency of men who'd just survived something they weren't supposed to. Ava was last to board, standing at the landing zone's edge, weapon slung, scanning the ridgelines once more for threats or vengeful survivors. because that's what you do when you're the person who killed 17 men before breakfast. Hartley caught her arm as she stepped onto the ramp, not harsh, but firm enough to halt her. We need to talk back at base. Full debrief, I'll put it in writing. I don't want a written report, he shot back. I want to know who you really work for and what the hell you were doing on my operation. Ava freed her arm smoothly. I work for the same country you do, Commander. I was doing my job, that's all you need to know. She emphasized his rank in a way that almost sounded like mockery. That's all you're going to get, sir. Fine, get the wounded to med before we have this conversation again. The flight to the forward operating base took 40 minutes. Ava sat alone near the crew chief, methodically cleaning her rifle while the SEALs clustered in groups, trying to process what had happened. Some treated the injured. Some stared into space with that 1,000-yard look of men replaying combat. A few kept sneaking glances at her, trying to reconcile the woman disassembling her weapon with the lethal precision they'd watched in the valley. Eventually, Chief Eli Rogan moved away from his team and sat beside her. He watched in silence as her hands ran the routine. Oilcloth wiping carbon from the bolt, bore snake through the barrel, each motion efficient, economical. After a long pause, he said quietly, "My daughter wants to join. Marine Corps." The question he kept circling in his head was simple. Asset or liability? Ava slung her rifle across her chest. "Right now, Commander, I'm the reason your men go home," she said. "That's what should matter." She turned and walked toward the corpsman tending the wounded, leaving Hartley alone with thoughts he probably wouldn't ever sort out. Behind him, Vale and his buddy whispered, "You see that shit?" "I saw it." "Don't believe it, but I saw it. Who is she?" "Someone way above our pay grade, brother. Way above." The sun climbed, burning off the morning chill and throwing the valley into hard light that exposed every scrap of the firefight. Spent brass speckled the dust. Blood darkened the earth. In the middle of it, Ava moved among the injured with the same calm efficiency she'd shown with a rifle, helping the corpsman prep men for extraction. She didn't look like a cold-blooded killer who'd eliminated 17 fighters. She looked exactly like her file said, an intelligence analyst doing her job. But everyone who'd watched now knew something different. Files lie, appearances deceive, and the most dangerous people are the ones you never expect. The Chinook's rotors pounded the air as it settled into a swirl of dust. The wounded boarded first, lashed to litters or walking with help. The rest of the SEALs followed with the careful efficiency of men who'd survived something they weren't supposed to. Ava was last to climb aboard, standing at the landing zone's edge with weapons slung, scanning the ridgelines one last time for threats or vengeful survivors, because that's what you do when you're the person who killed 17 men before breakfast. Hartley gripped her arm as she reached the ramp, not rough, but firm enough to stop her. "We need to talk back at base. Full debrief. I'll put it in writing." "I don't want a written report," he shot back. "I want to know who you actually work for and what the hell you were doing on my op." Ava eased her arm free. "I work for the same country you do, Commander. I was doing my job. That's all you need to know." She pronounced his rank in a way that almost mocked him. "That's all you're getting, sir." "Fine. Get the wounded to med before we debate this." The flight back to the forward operating base took 40 minutes. Ava sat alone near the crew chief and methodically cleaned her rifle while the SEALs clustered, trying to process what had happened. Some treated the injured, others stared into the distance with that 1,000-yard look. A few kept glancing at her, trying to reconcile the woman breaking down her weapon with the lethal precision they'd seen. Eventually, Chief Eli Rogan left his team and took the seat beside her. He said nothing at first, just watched her hands run the maintenance ritual. Oilcloth over the bolt, bore snake through the barrel, each motion precise and economical. After a long pause, he spoke quietly. "My daughter wants to join. Marine Corps." They both held that for a beat, and he stepped back half a pace, suddenly aware he was talking to someone who'd killed 17 men before lunch and hadn't even broken a sweat. "So, what now?" Ava asked. "Now you write the report," Director Grant Sloan said. "You explain the enemy positions were already softened by preparatory fires before our ground element arrived. You say you provided real-time intelligence enabling effective targeting. You say everything, except the part where a single shooter wiped out half the hostile force." "You want me to lie?" Ava snapped. "I want you to preserve operational security. There's a difference." She thought about it. She'd known this talk was coming the moment she picked up that rifle. Every op had consequences. Every choice carried a price. "And if I refuse?" she asked. "Then you'll end up on a desk in a basement in Virginia, staring at satellite photos of empty desert." He had her. Both of them knew it. Ava Merrick had many things, but sitting behind a desk while Americans died in the field wasn't one of them. That was her weakness, and Sloan knew how to exploit it. "All right," she said at last. "I'll write the report." "Good." He turned away. "And Merrick, next time you're embedded, remember your role. Observe, analyze, support. No heroics." He walked off, leaving her alone between the shipping containers. Above, the Cordash sun beat down with merciless heat. In the distance, the base hummed, rotors, vehicles, the small noises of a place trying to look normal. She looked at her hands, steady, no tremor, no visible aftermath of what she'd done. Inside, where no one could see, Ava was weighing loyalty against duty, orders against what was right, the difference between being a tool and being a person. She was making a decision that would shape everything to come. 3 days later, she sat in a windowless briefing room with Commander Cole Hartley, Chief Eli Rogan, and 2 JSOC officers, concrete walls, no light, the sort of room where secrets are kept and consequences decided. Hartley opened the meeting. "The official report will state the enemy positions were degraded by preparatory fires before our ground element arrived," he read. "That Captain Merrick provided valuable, real-time intelligence enabling effective targeting, and that the operation, despite casualties, was ultimately successful." He paused, looking at her. "But we all know we know what actually happened. So, I'll ask one more time, Captain, who do you really work for?" Ava had spent 3 days shaping an answer. She'd written the report Sloan wanted, filed the paperwork, done what was needed to keep cover and preserve operational security. Sitting there, watching men who'd nearly died because intelligence failed them, she chose differently. "I work for an organization that officially doesn't exist," she said. "We identify situations where conventional military responses are impossible or inadvisable. We insert assets, people like me, to fix situations through direct action while keeping plausible deniability for the U.S., Ava said. "Assassins," one JSOC officer muttered flatly. "Problem solvers," another offered. "The targets are always vetted, always real threats to American lives or interests, but sometimes those threats sit where we can't officially go. Sometimes diplomatic immunity or politics protect them. Sometimes they're simply too dangerous for normal channels." Rogan leaned in. "So, what are you? Ghosts? Myth? One of those operators everyone whispers about but pretends not to believe?" Ava answered plainly. She'd been given precise training and specific authorities for a single purpose: keep Americans alive when the rules make it impossible. Hartley watched, his face cycling disbelief, anger, then a reluctant sort of acceptance. The ambush had been perfect because someone in the local security had tipped off the enemy. They knew the roads, the timing, the tactics. It should have been a massacre. Instead, it became a lesson about underestimating the wrong person. "You saved our lives." "I did my job." Hartley shook his head. "You went way beyond it. You risked exposure, your cover, whatever mission you were on to save SEALs who spent the flight treating you like you didn't belong. Why?" Ava paused, thinking. "Because that's what we do. We keep Americans alive even when they don't know we exist, even when they wouldn't sign off on our methods. We work in the dark so you can do the light stuff. That's the deal, and the weight we carry." The room fell quiet until a JSOC officer cut in. This never happened. The briefing never happened. Officially, Captain Merrick provided intelligence support. End of story. Everyone nodded. Good. If word leaked that assets were operating outside normal command, killing on U.S. authority without oversight, there'd be investigations, hearings, maybe charges, and everyone here would be tangled in it. They filed out. Hartley lingered until only he and Ava remained. "For what it's worth, I was wrong about you," he said, completely. "Is it lonely?" he asked, being someone no one is supposed to know about. Ava thought sometimes, then said she remembered the SEALs who went home because someone was there. She thought about attacks that never happened because someone like her was in the right place at the right time, and that memory was why she kept doing it. "Will I see you again?" he asked. "Probably not. People like me don't stay put. We move, adapt, disappear. That's how we stay effective." She gathered her minimal gear. Hartley watched the woman who'd saved his team recede into legend. At the door, Ava paused. "Thank you for my men." "You're welcome, Commander." "Do me one favor," she added. "Stop underestimating people for what they look like or what a file says, because the most dangerous people are the ones you never see coming. Remember that, and you might live long enough to make Admiral." She left him standing in the empty room. 6 months later, in another country on another op, Ava sat in an observation post watching a target house through high-power optics. The mission was simple. Identify, confirm, eliminate. The work that never made headlines, never won medals, never appeared in records. Her spotter, a young operator on Tour 2, whispered, "You really do this? Sit, wait, take a shot, disappear. Doesn't it bother you?" Ava adjusted the scope a fraction to account for a wind shift he hadn't seen. It used to. Then she'd stopped thinking of it as killing and started thinking of it as solving a problem. That man in the house was planning an attack that would kill hundreds, maybe thousands. He was shielded by his government, his detail, international law. Conventional options had been exhausted. So she was there. Tomorrow, hundreds of people who didn't even know she existed would wake up alive because of what she did tonight. That's how she lived with it. The target showed in a window. Her finger found the trigger. "Stand by." Standing by. The shot was perfect, clean, final. The target dropped and Ava was already breaking down her rifle, slipping into the night. Another problem solved, another threat ended, another day as the person nobody was supposed to know about, doing the job no one would officially admit existed. The wolf doesn't announce itself to the flock. America's deadliest wolves wore faces no one would remember, held jobs no one would acknowledge, and carried burdens no one could understand. Ava Merrick was one of those wolves, and the world was safer for it, even if the world would never know her name. Thank you for watching.